Please announce yourself.
Hi,
This is Darren.
Who's this?
This is Darren with rebootcongress.blogspot.com.
Hey, Darren, how you doing?
Good.
I think we've waited long enough. Why don't we go ahead and get started? Go ahead,
Okay,
Rodger.
I'll go ahead and start it off. This is Rodger Cook, candidate for U.S. Congress in Illinois 12, and we're here today to discuss the issue of another piece that Jason Plummer has sent out attacking me personally again in one of the things that I'm most proud of, my law enforcement career. You know, as we all know, just previously, you know, in an effort to attack me last Friday night, he defamed very respected Paul Caprio from Family Pack, and yesterday he sent out a hit piece that not only attacked me wrongfully and also people from the financial industry on a project that I was lauded for all my efforts to bring to the city of Belleville. But today is probably the most despicable of all. A homicide investigation in East Alton where a lady who was a clerk at the Lewis and Clark Motel, Lucille Betts, was stabbed, choked, strangled, and murdered. And he brings this up to try to damage me falsely, and he's got to realize the effect this has on that family, bringing this up in an effort to try to criticize me. Let me just briefly thank everybody for being on the phone, and let me just go a little bit over the case. As you well know, Major Case Squad of Greater St. Louis has police officers throughout the Metro East that are called out to help small communities that may not have the ability to do a homicide investigation such as this. I was called out on this case, arrived in East Alton at the Lewis and Clark Motel and then to the East Alton Police Station where we began our investigation. I had a partner who was Dave Nestor from the St. Clair County Sheriff's Department. Dave was with me, and I was with him in every step we took. We went out doing random stuff initially, and then spent probably 18 straight hours there that night after working all day ourselves. Went home for a few hours, came back the next day. We were given a name to go to a house to talk to somebody that may know something. I can't remember that name, but I knocked on the door, and this subject answered the door. It was who we were wanting to talk to and ask some questions from. He agreed to come up to the station and help us out and tell us anything that he may know. As we were doing that, a guy walked through the hallway. We were looking for a suspect with a punked haircut, anarchy tattoo on his side of his neck and a cross on his chest. All of a sudden, this guy walked through. He had a punk haircut. I seen something on his neck, and I seen a cross on his chest. I asked him what his name was. He said it was Dustin Pennington. I said, Dustin, do you mind coming up to the police station? We're investigating a situation at the Lewis and Clark Motel. And he said, no, I have no problem. So we put them both in the car, backseat of the car. We didn't even handcuff them. They were coming voluntarily. Went to the station. Dave Netzer and I took Dustin Pennington. And it's important to note that I specialize in juvenile law for at least 8 years. I was in the juvenile department as a detective. Began talking with Dustin to see if he knew anything. It was apparent that he was being deceptive and not telling us the truth about his whereabouts on the night of the homicide. We did ask Dustin if he'd be willing to take a polygraph test. He said he would. And a juvenile has to have parental rights, parental consent to do a polygraph, and his mom was from Wichita, Kansas. So we began immediately efforting to contact her where she worked. It took a long time, but finally she got back with us. She agreed to him taking the polygraph. Then we had to go through the process of getting a signed copy from her via fax, I believe. And we got that. A polygraph examiner came in. Dustin went with the polygraph examiner. About a short period of time, no longer than 10 minutes, the polygraph examiner came out, and Dustin Pennington had said that he wanted to talk to Detective Cook. Dave Netzer and I went in. When I went in, Dustin was slumped
Rodger.
over. Yeah.
Who was the polygraph examiner? Do you remember?
Yes, Bob Baldwin.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. He was slumped over. I said, "Hey, what's wrong, Dustin?" And my job as a juvenile detective was, by the state law in Illinois, you do what's in the best interest of the child. So you're always in an effort to help and help these kids through this area. Well, to make a long story short, it was clear that Dustin had something to say, and we began getting into the case, and he admitted to doing it. He was on drugs. I believe it was crack, methamphetamine, and of course, we ended up getting into details. He told us things we didn't know, such as how he lit the office area on fire after he had stabbed her with something that he grabbed, like a butter knife or something, off the windowsill, and that he strangled her with the extension cord from a vacuum sweeper. You know how those pull out. And because he came in there, he knocked on the door, he was trying to break in, he was whacked out. She came there, and they fought. She started fighting him, and Lucille Betts was in her 60s. And she fought with him, and he tried to kill her with a knife, stop her. She kept fighting. She dug into his shoulder, strangled her, and then he ran out. That's basically his statement. And Dave Netzer was there along with me. I did most of the talking because I was a juvenile detective, so that's the facts of the case as I know them. Once we get through that, we're there for another day or two. We're looking for other corroborating evidence, cleaning up some other leads that are out there, and we did clip Lucille Betts' fingers because she had skin in there, and Dustin Pennington had the shoulder gouges in there, clearly looked like fingernail marks, and so we were hoping to have those sent off by the East Alton or the Madison County prosecutor for the DNA evidence for the case. But once we're done, and we leave and go back to our departments, and then it's up to the East Alton Police Department and the prosecutor from Madison County to take it forth from there. I can assure you that no time ever in my career would I ever do anything to bully, intimidate, force anyone to make a confession on any crime. I was sent to Reed College in Chicago and went to their deceptive forensic class, reading nonverbal communication, and then also went to the advanced class. And it was my job to get the truth out of people, and I did it in a respectful manner, especially when you're dealing with juveniles. So what was one of my greater accomplishments in my law enforcement career, Jason Plummer, who was 5 years old at the time, and I from the city of Belleville, whose city of Belleville loaned me to Madison County, and specifically East Alton, to get a murder off the street, and was given a award for it from the city of East Alton for my work in solving this. Here he comes out and criticizes this work in an effort to try to cheap shot me to make me look bad amongst the people. The truth is, this is one of my highlights of my career. So with that, we'll turn it over to Mark. Mark Cramp served over 10 years with me in the Belleville Police Department, and Mark's trustee now with the Fraternal Order of Police in the state of Illinois. Go ahead, Mark.
Roger, thank you. Roger said I've worked with him for 10 years, and I've worked many juvenile cases with him. Roger dedicated a big part of his career to juveniles, and I have sat in with Roger on juvenile interviews, and I am just appalled that someone would stoop so low to attack a police officer in this nature when we merely go out and we do the best we can when we investigate a case. If somebody gives us a confession, it's not our fault if the confession is right or wrong or maybe even sometimes inaccurate. But we take what we have and we present that case to the prosecutor. I worked many years as a detective. I also worked on the Greater St. Louis Major Case Squad. And those chiefs send the best people they have, normally for that major case squad, because those are grinding, tough cases that either the department doesn't have the ability to handle, or maybe the case is even too big for their people to handle. And, I just think that obviously someone doesn't understand the system to come out and attack a man's character in this nature. And I certainly will tell you, speaking from the Fraternal Order of Police, we would not endorse Rodger Cook if he was not a man of good character and good ethics.
Thanks, Mark. We have Don Weber here, a former prosecutor in Madison County. Don, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, let me say first off that I'm not here as a political person, and I'm not making any endorsements in this case. I mean, I know Rodger and I know Jason both, and I'm running for state representative, so I'm not making any endorsements. Mm-hmm. But I am experienced as a prosecutor. I prosecuted over 100 murder cases myself. I've convicted over 25 murderers in an actual courtroom, so I know how trials go. I've handled confessions. I've handled police. The police are always very upstanding. They almost always get attacked by the defense lawyers. I know this particular defense lawyer, John Rakowski. I have seen him viciously attack policemen before and make all sorts of negative comments about them and their character and their family and their police work. This guy is an ACLU, anti-death penalty, liberal that has absolutely no credibility. I remember this case in particular because Paula Sims murdered her second baby, Heather, on March 6, 1989. So I was in the state's attorneys at the time, and I know the prosecutor, Rich Rybeck, and I know that everybody was very disappointed that we didn't get a conviction on this. But just because you don't get a conviction on a guy does not mean that he is innocent. The verdict form does not read, "We, the jury, find the defendant innocent." The verdict form reads, "We, the jury, find the defendant not guilty." And what that means is there was not enough evidence to prove the defendant guilty beyond a reasonable doubt unanimously for all 12 jurors. Just like George Ryan let a bunch of guys loose from death row because there was some question about some of them, that was wrong. You know, a lot of those guys on death row, there was never any question about their guilt, and they should have actually gone through the process and been executed. But Rakowski and his sidekick, Ron Slimmer, both of whom I know, were gloating about their victory. It very seldom happens in the public defender's office. But to say that the police did anything wrong, I don't recall anything like that. As a matter of fact, I recall Rybeck telling me that he thought the police had actually done a really good job on the case. So I'm not endorsing anybody. I'm not endorsing Rodger. I'm not endorsing Jason. I'm just saying that as an experienced prosecutor who's handled over 100 murder cases, this is just one of those things that happened.
Hey, Don, let me ask you this. See, one of the things that they put in here is the time frame that we had Dustin Pennington there, and, he explained it when we had to find his mother and get the permission for the polygraph. And in court, Rakowski was just unbelievable on me. That was his whole defense, was that Belleville police officers are known for beating confessions, is what he kept telling me on the stand. And I was not allowed to let them know that the reason it took so long with Dustin was because we were waiting to get permission for him to take a polygraph test. And they wouldn't let us use the word polygraph. And he just hounded me. Why so long? And that was their whole defense of trying to make the time frame that we just sweated a confession out. This kid was so comfortably set there. We'd bring him food, whatever he wanted. He was fine, and he knew he was part of the process of getting hold of his mother. But I had to use language such as in Sergeant Baldwin's professional capacity, we needed the permission from the mother to do what he does And so I had to dance around it the whole time. And so he did defame police officers, and especially us from the Belleville Police Department, in an effort to bloody us during the trial. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell from my end.
See, that's one of the problems, though, you have when you have these left-wing ACLU-type public defenders like John Rakowski, and they have an advantage because they know you can't explain the time frame, and they exploit it and make it look like you were browbeating a 13-year-old kid for 13 hours in a row, when, in fact, that wasn't happening. But, you know, you mentioned about the Reed School of Interrogation. I've done some interrogation schools, too, and one of the things they teach you at the FBI Academy in Quantico is the innocent man syndrome. An innocent man you can question for about a half an hour, and then he'll finally blow up, and he'll quit cooperating, and he'll demand a lawyer, and he'll do all sorts of things.
Absolutely.
I noticed this kid sat there very calmly with you and did the Norman Bates routine for the whole 13 hours. And even after he was acquitted, he said, well, there's no hard feelings with the police. That is, and I don't know if this guy's guilty or not, but that's the guilty man syndrome, the guy that cooperates fully. It's the Norman Bates syndrome.
Yeah.
So,
well, the big
said,
thing is go ahead.
This verdict was not innocent. This verdict was not guilty beyond a reasonable doubt.
Here's two things we got to remember. After the trial, he was found not guilty. The press had him downstairs with Rakowski by his side, and one person from the press asked, well, what do you think about Detective Cook? He said, I have no problems with Detective Cook. He was a good guy, and he didn't do anything wrong. Is basically what they said. I have no problems with him. But bigger than that is seeing the tears of Lucille Bett's family, and this is what Jason Plummer is bringing back up today. All the work we did in trying to help the city of East Alton and help that family and put closure to the death of their mother, he brings back up in an effort to politically damage me and make me look like I've done something wrong, which couldn't be further from the truth. So this is a pattern, defaming Paul Caprio. As I mentioned earlier, it's trying to defame me, to defame bankers, people in the financial industry. When another accomplishment I did, what's next? When I take on the Democratic machine, when they had all their big wigs trying to put me in front of a grand jury, trying to prove I perjured myself. It's important that everybody understand it. And I've never been arrested. I've never been charged. I've never been committed a crime in my adult life. And Jason Plummer doesn't know how to deal with that. He has no record. He's 29 years old, and all he can do is throw out junk like this. And what's next?
Hey, Rodger.
Yes.
Desperate people do desperate things.
All right. Do we have any questions from anybody?
Yeah, I have a question. Rodger, how typical was this particular case of homicides during your career and at that time? Was it a high-profile case, or was it kind of run-of-the-mill? Like, help me understand how big of a case it was.
I would say it was a run-of-the-mill case. The only thing specific about this was the only one that I did that involved a juvenile in a homicide. I dealt with juveniles on a daily basis, from armed robberies to home invasions to burglaries, and with drug situations and street gangs. But I've never ever handled or arrested a kid for murder. So that was different. It was high profile for East Alton, I assure you that. But it was I had bigger, more high profile cases than this in my career. So it was just this specific one involved a 16-year-old juvenile that was, had a dependency problem and was out of his area. I think it was just there visiting friends, not family, is what I remember. And so him being a juvenile made it a little different than most.
Did he go on to commit any other crimes after this one that you know of?
I do not know. I know he's not from this area. He's from the Kansas area. And I've heard things, but I don't want to specifically state something that I haven't factually checked. I've heard back a few years back, I mean, I said by a few 10 years ago that something may have happened to him, but I don't know that to be a fact, so I have no idea factually.
Getting to sort of to the political side of this, what impact do you think this sort of charge late in the game has both on your race as well as Jason Plummer's race? I mean, it seems like a dirty pool at this point in the game, but I'm wondering what your take is.
Well, if somebody would read this and never had met me, doesn't know anything about me, this negative stuff, I guess, may work for Plummer. But we've been out there, and people know that I was police officer of the year in Belleville by 3 different organizations. I've got 12 department accommodations. I was decorated. I did a lot of things in the schools and with kids. Many letters of accommodation for the public, and people know that. I know that I love my job as a police officer. I love the investigation part. I was good at it because I loved it. I'm a competitive person. I was very proud of my police career that I had to give up when I ran for mayor of Belleville. And people that know me know all that. So it depends if there's people out there that just see something that's sent out from a campaign and believe it. That's what their goal is. And I think we've done a good job of getting the facts about my life. My life's an open book. Heck, everything I did has basically been public. And we've made it public in our newspaper. So hopefully this is going to aggravate people like it. It hurts me, aggravates my friends, and the people that really know me. So that's our job, to combat this kind of crap.